Shenling and the Blade Squad behind her didn't break down, but every face showed nothing but shock and terror. Shenling's hand gripping her blade trembled slightly. She looked at me. Her gaze completely changed. She was no longer looking at a capable survivor, but at a god walking the earth. I slowly lowered my hand and walked up to Brother Bao, who lay paralyzed on the ground. He looked up at me as if I were a monster, his body shaking like a leaf. Now, can I bring my people in? Brother Bao nodded frantically, scrambling aside to clear the path. I ignored him, turned to those behind me, and said to Scarface and the others who were just as stunned, into the city. Only then did my team snap out of their daze. They looked at me, their eyes filled with fervent worship. They knew their leader was strong, but they'd never imagined this level of power. Erasing an entire building. What kind of power was that? Following a leader like this, surviving the apocalypse wouldn't be a problem. Our group drove into Blue Bay residences. While everyone watched in awe, no one dared stand in our way. Shenling and her Blade Squad followed silently behind us, like they were escorting us. I knew from that day on, Blue Bay residences had a new owner. After settling in at Blue Bay, the first thing I did was settle accounts. Brother Bao and his top enforcers who'd ruled through fear were locked up. I didn't kill them. I just stripped them of their powers. After evolving, my refresh ability could now work on living things. I could refresh a person's body, restoring them to perfect health. And naturally, I could also refresh the power core inside them, resetting it to before they ever awakened. When Brother Bao went from an Earth-type user to a helpless, overweight man, he completely broke. As for Shenling and her Blade Squad, I chose to win them over. They were real fighters. They still had their conscience. A rare find in the apocalypse. Right in front of Shenling, I refreshed a Tang Blade dulled from combat, then refreshed a box of antibiotics about to expire, turning them into brand new meds. Shenling watched all this, and finally got it. My ability wasn't spatial storage, and it wasn't repair. It was something she couldn't comprehend, almost like a law of nature. A power so deep it touched the fundamental laws themselves. She stayed quiet for a long time, then finally bowed to me. Blade Squad, from today, we follow your orders. With the Blade Squad on my side, I truly controlled Blue Bay residences. I set new rules. Everyone, powered or not, got food if they worked. With my endless supplies, I quickly won them over. At the same time, I'd cleared out all the troublemakers in the community. Under my management, Blue Bay had been completely transformed, thriving and vibrant. My parents looked at me with pride and satisfaction in their eyes. They never asked what my ability actually was. They only knew their son had grown up and that he'd become someone everyone could rely on. Once the base was running smoothly, I started thinking about something deeper. What exactly were the limits of my ability? I'd refreshed instant noodles. I'd refreshed entire buildings. So could I refresh a living person? I found a guard who'd been scratched by a zombie in combat. Someone who had already begun to turn. Everyone thought he was beyond saving. I sent everyone away. I closed the door and placed my hand on his forehead. A soft white light enveloped the guard. His agonized screams gradually subsided. The mutations in his body visibly receded. I watched his wound vanish and felt a tidal wave rise in my chest. I'd done it. I'd restored his body to its original state before infection. This meant the zombie virus was no longer a death sentence. This discovery thrilled me even more than refreshing an entire building. If I could cure the zombie virus, didn't that mean I could save more people? Maybe even end this apocalypse. A grand plan quietly took shape in my mind. But before that, I had some personal business to settle. I called Shenling in and asked if there'd been any news of a survivor group called Loophole, the one with Chen Yan, that D-rank flame manipulator, and my ex, Lu Ruyan. Shenling pulled up the map and pointed to a large supermarket in the East District. According to our intel, they'd occupied that location. They're the largest faction in the East. Their leader's name is Chen Yan, a peak D-rank flame manipulator. A cold glint flashed in my eyes. Let's go pay our neighbor a visit tomorrow. The next day, I only brought Shenling and the Blade Squad. We drove in an armored off-roader I'd upgraded and plowed straight through to that big supermarket. The place had been turned into a solid fortress. Armed guards lined the walls. Our arrival immediately put them on edge. State your name. Shenling leaned out and shouted, Lin Fan from Lan Bei Base. Here to see Chen Yan, leader of Blaze Base. The men on the wall clearly hadn't heard of me, but they knew Lan Bei Base. Before long, the supermarket's main gate swung open. A man in a red leather jacket stepped out. Behind him was Lu Ruyan, all smiles and flattery. It had been months. Lu Ruyan seemed to be doing pretty well for herself. She froze when she saw me. Then her face twisted with open contempt and smug superiority. Well, if it isn't Lin Fan, couldn't hack it out there. Come crawling to Blaze for help. She probably still thought I was that pathetic loser who needed her protection. Chen Yan looked me up and down too, especially when he spotted Shenling behind me, and the Blade Squad. A flicker of wariness crossed his eyes, but mostly he looked unimpressed. Lan Bei Base? Never heard of it. We don't take in freeloaders. Since we're all survivors here, leave your wheels and supplies, and beat it. He was talking big. In his mind, his low-level fire powers made him untouchable. Lu Ruyan piled on, riding his coattails. You hear that, Lin Fan? For old time's sake, I'm telling you, don't get cocky. The way you are now, you're not fit to shine Chen Yan's shoes. I looked at her smug little face and suddenly laughed. Lu Ruyan, remember that empty instant noodle cup you threw at me? Lu Ruyan froze, wondering why I'd brought it up. What noodle cup? I don't remember. Get lost, you're in the way. I dropped my smile. My eyes turned cold. You may not remember, but I do. Today, I'm here to make you eat it. Lu Ruyan looked like she'd heard the funniest joke ever. Pointing at me, she burst into laughter. Lin Fan, have you lost your mind? Make me eat a noodle cup. What gives you the right? Chen Yan crossed his arms with a sneer. Pretty bold words, kid. Looks like if we don't teach you a lesson, you won't even know how to write the word death. The moment he finished speaking, a blazing fireball condensed in his palm, radiating intense heat. The Blade Squad members immediately assumed defensive stances. Only Shenling and I remained standing motionless. I looked at the fireball in his hand. I shook my head. Is that all you've got? Pathetic. As I spoke, I raised my hand. The blazing fireball in Chen Yan's palm was extinguished like a candle in the wind. With a soft puff, it vanished into thin air. The smug grin on Chen Yan's face froze instantly. He stared in disbelief at his empty palm. What happened? Where is my fire? He tried to summon his ability again, but no matter how hard he tried, not a single spark would ignite. His prized D-rank fire manipulation ability was gone. What did you do to me? Chen Yan pointed at me in terror, his voice shrill. I didn't answer him. I simply turned to Liu Ruyan, who was frozen in fear. Now do you see what gives me the right? Liu Ruyan's lips trembled. Her face was deathly pale. She had no idea what had just happened, but she had watched that terrifying flame ability fizzle out silently before me. Fear left her unable to string a sentence together. Shenling tossed her in front of me like a sack of potatoes, forcing her to her knees, tears and snot streaming down her face as she begged for mercy. I watched this pathetic display without feeling a thing. I pulled something from my pocket. It was a crushed, braised beef instant noodle cup, the same one she'd thrown at me before. I'd kept it all this time. The empty container in my hand instantly restored itself to a brand new cup of noodles. I tore open the packaging, dumping out the noodles and seasoning packets, leaving only the empty paper bowl. I placed it in front of Liu Ruyan. Liu Ruyan stared at the empty bowl on the ground, her face paler than a corpse. She knew I wasn't kidding. Her hands shaking, she picked up the paper bowl, forced to eat it while everyone watched. Tears and snot covered her face. Chen Yan watched this, and finally realized what kind of terrifying person he'd crossed. His legs gave out, and he knelt down too. I didn't look at him. I just watched Liu Ruyan in silence, until she swallowed the paper bowl along with the wrapper. The whole thing, the fall of Lihuo base, was even easier than I'd expected. Stripped of their leader's abilities, and terrified by my methods, they surrendered with barely a fight. I merged the two bases, and Blue Bay base became the most powerful survivor group in the eastern part of the city. With Liu Ruyan dealt with, I threw all my energy into developing the base, and researching supernatural abilities. Once word gets out that I can cure the zombie virus, it'll shake the whole world. Until I have enough power to protect myself, I have to keep this secret. I set up a secret medical lab, run by my parents, specifically to treat infected people who could still be saved. Everyone I healed was deeply grateful to me, and became my most loyal follower. My influence snowballed. During this time, I also encountered other survivor factions. To friends, I offered supplies and aid. To enemies, I showed no mercy. Lin Fan's name gradually became legendary. Some called me a priest of salvation, while others called me a demon of destruction. But no matter what they said, they couldn't deny one fact. I already stood at the pinnacle of this apocalyptic world. Year 5 of the apocalypse. Blue Bay base had expanded into a megacity of 100,000. We had a comprehensive defense system, self-sufficient agriculture, and restored social order. Here, people were smiling again, and I, as the creator and guardian of this city, rarely appeared in public. Most of my time was spent atop the highest tower in the city center, overlooking the city I had built with my own hands. My abilities had also grown beyond recognition. I no longer needed physical contact to refresh everything within my line of sight. I could refresh barren land and make it fertile. I could refresh contaminated water and make it pure. My power was approaching that of a true god. Shenling was now the supreme commander of Hope City. She stood behind me, reporting the latest developments. My lord, the horde from the west is approaching. An S-class mutated zombie with intelligence. An S-class mutated zombie with intelligence. S-class zombies are the ultimate catastrophe of the apocalypse. Each one possesses the power to destroy an entire city. At those words, my gaze pierced the distance. I saw that black tide of hundreds of millions of zombies, blotting out the sky and sun. And at its center, seated upon a throne of bones, an S-class zombie sat there like an emperor. It seemed to sense me watching it too. Its blood-red eyes locked onto mine in midair. A terrifying psychic pressure crossed 100 miles, and slammed straight into me. Shenling grunted, her face going deathly pale. But I just waved my hand, and that pressure vanished like smoke. Ready? Shenling took a deep breath. Her eyes were steady. Hope City stands with you to the end. I smiled and shook my head. No, we're not dying. I turned to face her. And everyone in this city, this apocalypse, ends now. I walked out of Hope City alone, stood atop the city wall, facing that tide of zombies that seemed ready to swallow heaven and earth. Inside the city, 100,000 citizens watched me on giant screens. They were nervous, scared, but most of all, they trusted. The S-class zombies' roar seemed to tear at their very souls. It commanded the horde to launch the final assault. Slowly, I raised my hands, as if to embrace the whole world. Everyone assumed I was about to unleash some world-shattering attack, but they were wrong. There was no killing intent on my face, only a trace of mercy. My power was never meant for destruction. It was meant for rebirth. I closed my eyes and released everything I had, holding nothing back. Not targeting one zombie, not targeting one area, but targeting this scarred, broken, dying world. Time seemed to freeze. A light beyond words, gentle yet endless white light, burst from me, spreading outward across the world. Wherever the light touched, the frenzied zombies stopped in their tracks. Their rotting flesh began to heal. Their clouded eyes cleared. The violence and bloodlust in their eyes gave way to confusion and humanity. The light swept across the land. Green grass sprouted from the cracked, parched earth. The gray haze lifted, revealing the clear blue sky they hadn't seen in ages. The S-class zombie, seated on the throne of bones, watched in horror as its body transformed. It tried to resist, but could not stop it. This primordial force from the origin of the world. Eventually, it too regained human form, staring blankly at its own hands. The entire world had been refreshed. Everyone infected by the virus returned to normal. Every environment destroyed by the apocalypse came back to life, as if that 5-year nightmare had been nothing but an illusion. Inside Hope City, a deathly silence fell. Everyone watched through their screens, stunned by this miraculous sight. No one knew how much time had passed. The first person wept with joy, followed by a second, then a third, until thunderous cheers shook the entire city, echoing across the entire renewed world. They shouted my name. I stood atop the city wall, feeling the gentle breeze. I turned and saw Shenling. I saw my parents. I saw countless joyful faces filled with hope. I smiled. The instant noodles before me could refresh infinitely, and so could the world beneath my feet.
Thanks for watching. If you want more stories, make sure to like and subscribe. There is much more to come.